Greetings. My name is Dave Levy. I'm responsible for partnerships and strategy at Scitara Corporation. And I'm joined today by Gerald Conway from Revvity Signals to share a little bit with you about the Scitara DLX integration platform and the partnership with the Revvity Signals team. We're going to start with a brief introduction to the Scitara Digital Lab Exchange technology. We'll do a short demo, and then I'm going to turn it over to Gerard to talk a little bit about the impact of this for the Revvity team and for our common customers. I want to take a moment to express our appreciation for joining you at the user meeting here. We're also looking forward to joining the user meeting in Europe the following week. Very much looking forward to that. So a little bit about Scitara Digital Lab Exchange. We refer to the Digital Lab Exchange as an iPaaS for science. iPaaS primarily standing for Integration Platform as a Service. What we've observed is that the drive to digital transformation in the lab really calls for a different way of looking at and implementing systems integration at the lab level. It's really no longer about establishing point-to-point communications and connectivity between different endpoints in the lab. It really requires you to look at the laboratory as a broader ecosystem of interconnected systems and people as well. And they all need to mobilize and exchange data. And that's what the Scitara Digital Lab Exchange platform is all about. It's a powerful automation tool. It provides universal connectivity across the laboratory. We'll talk a little bit about different kinds of connectivity and automations. But the key thing is the focus on data mobility. The Scitara Digital Lab Exchange platform is really infrastructure. We're not a data lake. We're not a traditional application. We're not a place to go where scientists will log in and do science. That's what Signals is for. What we do is facilitate the mobility of data or mobilization of data across all the endpoints lab, including Signals, to really maximize and accelerate your ability to derive scientific conclusions and advancement. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today during this demo and presentation. And we certainly look forward to having more detailed conversations with you if you find this to be of interest. So if we think about the laboratory ecosystem in broadly and in somewhat simple terms, you find a wide variety of different kinds of instruments and platforms. Everything from benchtop instruments that don't include PCs to PC-based instruments, enterprise instruments that are driven by software, informatics platforms such as Revvity Signals, LIMS systems, MES, data lakes now are also considered to be really part of just about every scientific ecosystem. And of course now streaming data systems as the role of biologics has become much more prominent. Now, the ability to connect any two of these endpoints together has been around for some time. In fact, one could argue, very legitimately so, that you've been able to connect any two endpoints together in a lab with a variety of technologies for probably 20, 30 years. But what hasn't changed is that if you look at the lab as a broader ecosystem, as I mentioned, you wind up with a very challenging kind of subway map of problem. And this problem persists. It has persisted since day one. It is still a problem. We have customers and partners reaching out to us indicating that the point-to-point scenario, if you try to expand it to cover the whole ecosystem, it really just doesn't work. And so what this means is that you have to think differently about the nature of the problem and how to solve it. And so at Scitara, what we've done is constructed, as I mentioned, an ecosystem or an infrastructure to connect the ecosystem together. Now, that infrastructure consists of a number of commercial configurable components. So there's a few key things about the Scitara DLX platform that you should be aware of. It consists of a set of connection technologies, all of which are commercial and configurable, combined with automation tools that we call orchestrations that also have a user interface that are part of our platform. We do not write custom code for software for customers. The objective is that this is a commercial out-of-the-box platform that provides configurable connectivity with a tremendous amount of flexibility. Once you plug any of these connected endpoints into the infrastructure, it now has access to any other endpoint that's on the infrastructure. which allows multi-directional communication across all of the endpoints on the platform. And this opens up a great deal of flexibility in terms of the way you wish to mobilize data across the ecosystem. And that includes can include things as sophisticated but straightforward in some ways as sending a sample set to a CDS or a sequence and retrieving results, to talking to a balance, to parsing files. From the Scitara DLX point of view, all of these are fundamentally similar types of actions. One of the key things about the Scitara Digital Lab Exchange platform is that if we do our job right, we work very hard to disappear. As I said, our job is not to be a destination application where people go to do science. It's to really mobilize data and interconnect the platforms and applications that you have. So the technology really has, from a functional perspective, three fundamental components. There's the portfolio of connection technologies that I described. This ranges from connectors that are designed specifically with a partner's API in mind, like the Revvity Signals connector, to universal connectors that work with flat files, work with any web service-based application, or protocols such as RS-232 or OPC. Then there's the automation engine, which we call orchestrations. That drives a multi-directional data exchange across the entire platform. So it effectively strings together the different connections that are in your platform, provides the ability to reshape and reformat data, even do calculations on the fly if you need to. And then for lab managers and IT professionals, we do have the ability to monitor the status of both your connections and your orchestrations. You can watch orchestrations in real time. We'll do a little bit of that in the short demo that we have coming up. So in summary, as we, one more slide before we get to the demo, if you think about the role that Scitara Digital Lab Exchange plays, the laboratory environment consists of really the lower two-thirds of the screen. There are applications and instruments that are on-prem. There are applications and platforms that might be cloud-based, but they're still work in the lab. The Scitara Digital Lab Exchange brings these two environments together as if they were sitting next to each other to allow the free flow of exchange between them. It can be thought of as a very transactional process, but by doing that, we also gain access to all of the data that's flowing across all of these different signals, endpoints, whether it's Signals Inventa, Revvity Signals, it could be Excel, Box, OpenLab, LIM systems, et cetera, across all the different instrument types as well. By having access to those and being able to gain access, as I mentioned, data lakes to us are just another endpoint. It creates an environment where our common customers can then gain access to this data and leverage tools like TIBCO Spotfire on data lakes and to perform data analytics. And this adds a tremendous layer of value on top of this transactional activity that you see going on in the lower screen below. And so with that, I'm going to take a moment and share a very brief demo with you, and then I'm going to turn it over to Gerard to go ahead and finish up the presentation. So I'm going to now share my screen. All right, and at this point, you should all see my screen. And what you're looking at on the screen here is the Revvity Signals platform with an experiment in view. And then in the background, you can see part of the Scitara DLX web console that's currently showing orchestrations, the orchestration execution view. Now, we are short on time, so I don't have a lot of time to explain the details of the Scitara DLX console. I would request that you reach out to your Revvity folks for if you're interested and you want to see more. But what we have here is an experiment that has a number of different kinds of endpoints connected up to it. So if you're doing an experiment, for example, you might want to connect to sensors that can pull in temperature and humidity or air particle counters. These are all fully accessible from within the Revvity platform with just the push of a button. It executes an automation through Scitara DLX to go fetch this information. You might also have a need to parse data files, for example, from a ViCell, which is a cell counter, or interact with an application like Unicorn, which is a PC-based application. Again, can be a very simple thing from just executing a menu selection or pushing a button. What we're going to show you in real time today is a very quick example of interacting with a balance gathering some weight information, sending a sequence to Chromeleon, and then fetching some results. So I've already done one weight example right here. So I'm going to go ahead now and if I want to do fetch another weight, I've gone ahead and set this up already so that the system is pretty much ready to go. You can see the different weight selections that I have here. I know that this is the one that I want. This metadata can be whatever you choose it to be. And these dialogues are also fully configurable. I do also have the ability to select the different balances that might be available if there's more than one. In this case, I'm going to select my lab balance. And now I'm going to be presented with a dialog that actually allows me to control the balance. So if I am doing this with my PC next to the balance, I can control it from right here. If I choose to have a tablet in the lab, I can scan a QR code at the balance and be presented with the same screen. And this screen is also configurable. So you could zero out the balance, do a tare weight. Once you're happy with the balance, you can take a reading. That reading is locked in. If you realize that you've made a mistake, you can take the reading again, and you'll notice that the first reading is rejected, but is still stored in our event stream. I can also add in a memo. So if I just type in very quickly, let's say sample is white, for example, I'll create my memo, and then I will go ahead and bear with me a minute. I just need to do a quick zoom out. I'll go ahead and submit that, and this will continue its orchestration. It'll continue the automation, so the user can actually watch what's happening in real time if they wish to, and that data will then get dropped automatically back into the Signals platform, as you can see, with the appropriate attribution, as well as all the metadata appropriately plugged in. I'm now going to move these samples to my sequence table. So this will now execute an automation to just move the samples from the samples table into the sequence table. And we'll close this up. We'll see that that's going to drop in here in just a moment. You can see them now here. And now I'm going to go ahead and interact directly with Chromeleon in an automated way. And again, without having the additional time, we do have the ability to interact with the user. As you've seen, we can bring up dialogues. So in this case, we're auto-logging in. We're providing the user with the ability to see the different, a preview of the sequence that's being created. We'll elect to go ahead and pick this up and say, yes, this is what we want to do. You can see the name of the sequence here, all the information that was pulled out of the signals table, and we'll go ahead and submit that. This is now creating the sequence automatically in Chromeleon. We could supplement this with a notification to the folks in the lab if we wished, that the sequence was actually ready to go. And then the final step here, after I've done my analysis and I want to bring the data back, we know the name of the sequence that we've created in Chromeleon, so we can simply pull the data back, or we can interact and allow the user to choose the location from where to pull the data from. Again, in the interest of time here, we'll perform an automated function that simply goes out and grabs data from Chromeleon and parses out that data, brings back the information that we want to see inside of Signals, and you can see the data drops in here. Notice the significant digits. We're pulling the data as it's presented to us from Chromeleon. While we can trim around this information, generally we would leave it up to the Signals team to configure, or to you as the user, to configure this in such a way that the data is harmonized in the Signals platform. And with that, I'll stop sharing. I'll turn it over to Gerard to wrap up the presentation. Thank you very much.
At Revvity Signals, from talking to our customers, we see a number of application areas where improved integration, improved automation can really add value. So one of the application areas that aligns to the demonstration that David just walked through is in the area of analytical services and prep labs, integrating systems like chromatography data systems, sample management systems, and LIMS to smooth that workflow, and working with those chromatography systems like Empower and Chromeleon. Today, there's a lot of movement of files with regard to that particular workflow, maybe moving content around in Excel or taking PDF documents, copy and pasting that information, maybe even moving them around using USB sticks. And we also saw the balance integration as part of that workflow. So there's a lot of desktop benchtop devices such as balances, pH meters, osmometers in place in the lab today. So large fleets of those instruments used on an almost daily basis by scientific teams. And there often the information from those devices is being moved around on paper, so jotting down notes and then returning to your ELN to enter those manually, or even moving them around on sticky notes and again taking it back to your desk to do the transcription. All of those things provide a potential for error in transcription error or mislocating files that you may be working with. And so lots of scope for added value in automating that process. Then there are areas such as assay automation where you're dealing with plate readers, imaging systems, maybe liquid handlers. So use cases where we have multiple sophisticated instrumentation at play, parallel experimentation, maybe in bioprocessing where you're using small scale bioreactors in parallel, or even using for downstream bioprocessing. Again, maybe combining that information that's coming off those bioreactors with offline chromatography systems for analyses. We see today in a lot of those type of scenarios that there's a lot of costly custom solutions being built and put in place that then need to be maintained and enhanced over time, and the effort that goes into the development and maintenance of those systems. And finally, we see a lot of scope for application in lab operations. So again, doing calibration of equipment, making sure those calibrations are recorded, gathering environmental parameters. Oftentimes these are jotted down on checklists or cards within the lab themselves, and being able to automate and centralize the collection of that information, and maybe doing that on a scheduled basis as well. And from a general operations point of view, as this data is being collected by the DLX platform, we're getting a lot of context of what instrument was run, when it was run, who ran that instrument. And that can drive a lot of operational analytics that you can use to get an oversight of how your instrumentation is being used, what instruments are used most regularly, which instruments aren't being used or underutilized, or you may have a sophisticated piece of instrumentation that's being used to run pretty simplistic tests. So all of that can help you optimize your overall usage of your kind of capital investments around instrumentation. So a lot of scope to improve the workflows and automate those workflows across these different application areas. And at Revvity Signals, we're excited to have expanded our partnership with Scitara. So now we have a new offering, the Signals Digital Lab Exchange, which actually brings together Scitara DLX technology as part of the Signals platform. And we can offer that from the Revvity Signals side as an end-to-end solution through our global sales teams, our services organization, and our support team. And all of that is aimed to drive true data mobility for labs. We've always had a robust API within the Signals platform that allowed you to build custom integrations. Moving to the DLX offering now, it's much more around configurable orchestrations. So we can leverage that integration platform centrally. We can use things like the Signals connector to have a low code, no code wrappers and adapters for connecting to the Signals notebook and other instrumentation and systems within your environment. So we can leverage all of the connectors that David talked about to gather information and pass it to where it needs to be consumed. And again, the goal there is to enhance lab productivity. So empowering your scientific teams in biotech, pharma, and chemical industries to accelerate their digital transformation. So making sure that the data is picked up from where it's produced and delivered to where it can be most optimally consumed. And that can be one or more endpoints. That could be the Signals notebook. In addition, that same data or some augmented form of that data can also go to a corporate data lake or data warehouse where we use to drive analytic applications. And making sure that data ends up in the right location for an intended user means those users can more quickly get access to that data and make better, more informed decisions with greater confidence in the data that they're looking at. So we see a huge amount of value in the expanded partnership. Thank you for everyone who joined today's session. If you want to find out more, then please reach out to your local Revvity Signals representative, and we're certainly happy to go into more detail on the capabilities of the offering.